Well, let's take a look now at how Latin American leaders are digesting developments in Caracas and in New York. Tim Vickery is our Brazil correspondent, and he joins me live now from Rio de Janeiro.
The geopolitical tensions in Latin America have sharply escalated following comments by U.S. President Donald Trump, who publicly threatened possible military action against Colombia, a statement that has sent shockwaves across the region and raised serious concerns among diplomats, security analysts, and international observers. As the remarks came in the immediate aftermath of the U.S. military operation in Venezuela and the reported detention of President Nicolas Maduro, creating fears that Washington may be entering a far more confrontational phase in its approach toward Latin America, particularly on issues related to drug trafficking and regional security. Speaking to reporters, President Trump accused the Colombian government under President Gustavo Petro of failing to control cocaine production and trafficking, suggesting that Colombia's leadership was either unwilling or unable to address what he described as a direct threat to U.S. national security. And when asked whether military action was an option, Trump responded in a way that appeared to leave the door open, saying such an operation sounds good, a phrase that quickly dominated headlines and ignited political backlash. Colombia, long considered one of Washington's closest allies in the region, immediately rejected the remarks, with its foreign ministry condemning them as unacceptable interference in national sovereignty and a violation of international law, while President Gustavo Petro issued a firm response warning that Colombia would defend itself if attacked, stating that the country would take up arms if necessary. A declaration that underscored how quickly rhetorical threats could translate into real-world military risks. Analysts note that Trump's comments represent a significant departure from decades of U.S.-Colombia cooperation, which has traditionally focused on joint counter-narcotics efforts, intelligence sharing and economic partnerships rather than open threats of force, and they warn that such language risks undermining trust, destabilizing regional alliances, and emboldening extremist or criminal groups who thrive in environments of political chaos. The timing of the threat has further intensified concerns, as it follows closely on the heels of the Venezuela crisis, leading many observers to question whether the United States is signaling a broader strategy of coercive pressure across Latin America, with Colombia, Cuba, and other nations potentially becoming targets of heightened scrutiny or confrontation. International reactions have been swift, with several Latin American governments calling for calm and dialogue, while global powers such as China and Russia have criticized what they describe as aggressive and unilateral rhetoric that could destabilize an already fragile region, warning that military threats against sovereign nations set a dangerous precedent in international relations. The United Nations has urged restraint and emphasized the importance of diplomacy, noting that disputes over drug trafficking and security must be addressed through multilateral cooperation rather than threats of force, particularly in a region that has a long history of conflict fueled by external intervention. Inside the United States, Trump's remarks have sparked intense debate, with supporters arguing that strong language is necessary to combat transnational drug networks and protect American communities, while critics warn that threatening a democratic ally like Colombia could backfire, damage U.S. credibility, and draw the country into unnecessary conflicts. For Colombia, the stakes are high, as the nation continues to struggle with armed groups, drug cartels, and internal political divisions, and any escalation with the United States could have severe economic and security consequences, potentially affecting trade, investment, and regional stability. As the situation continues to unfold, key questions remain unanswered, including whether Trump's comments were intended as a negotiating tactic, a warning shot, or a genuine signal of future military action, and how Colombia and other Latin American nations will recalibrate their relationships with Washington in response, making this a critical and developing story that could reshape power dynamics, alliances, and security strategies across the Western Hemisphere.